what do you kind of make of the state of things as we are closing out Sunshine Week here in the U.S. and in New York State? How do you think things are as far as being transparent in our state, local, federal governments right now?
Well, I founded the New York Coalition for Open Government about 10 years ago now. And while we've had some success with some legislative changes, I think overall things haven't gotten better, which is frustrating and disappointing. Um, at the state level, we've had some success with getting the attention of the state assembly and the state senate. And interestingly, our roadblock now is Governor Hochul, who seems to, although she, promised a new era of transparency, hasn't backed that up much. And in fact, has vetoed several bills that we've gotten through the state legislature. So that's frustrating. At the local level, I think people tend to get, some better responses to FOIL requests, but not always. And even just basic things like posting meeting documents online doesn't seem to happen as much as it should. I mean, how do you know whether you're interested in attending a meeting if you can't even see the meeting documents beforehand? So it's a continuing battle.
Yep. With Governor Hochul, I think you're referring to there was 3 or 4 bills that were in the legislature, and I just wrote about it. It seems like last year there was some sort of momentum or thought that this would happen, and now it seems I haven't found anything to suggest that that those are even still really active. What's your experience been with trying to get those passed and then the governor vetoing them?
Yeah, I mean, we had a great bill that would improve FOIL. One of the biggest problems with the Freedom of Information law is just the constant delays. I was really skeptical that we would get the legislature to pass a bill that would, prevent agencies from extending, beyond 60 days to comply with a FOIL request. I said, well, we'll give it a shot, but I can't imagine they're going to pass this. And surprisingly, the Assembly and the Senate did pass it, but then the governor vetoed it. There's just so much more the governor can do. Really, what this comes down to is just a commitment and resources. The state budget is over $260 billion. I just can't believe that, we can't help municipalities maybe hire FOIL officers, help them maybe with some of the technicalities of live streaming meetings. The Committee on Open Government is a great resource, but they don't have any enforcement authority or power. And the governor could easily advocate for those things. And when you have the governor pushing it, it's going to happen. So,
and it's a one-party rule too, and it would seem that transparency is something that most of the public would get behind, right? I mean, wouldn't that be politically palatable?
Yeah, I always say elected officials, look, you'll be a hero if you push some of these things. The public will love you. You'll get great editorials, news reporters. I mean, why would you not advocate for these things? What's the downside? But, when people get into positions of power, I guess they're just, less willing to do these things.
Yeah, what do you make of the argument, and I think she put it in her veto memo, that, well, it's burdensome on agencies. We just don't have the resources, and it would be unduly burdensome, and the state just can't afford it right now. What do you make of that argument?
Yeah, I just don't buy it. Like anything, if you are willing to commit to it, I mean, we throw money around in New York State for all kinds of things. There's all kinds of organizations and commissions created that get funding. millions of dollars of funding. I don't think this would take a huge amount of money. And if anything, just, setting the example by demanding that your agency heads, get better at this as far as processing FOIL requests. We don't measure it or track it in any way. Which is interesting is at the federal level, federal agencies are required to do an annual report every year where they document how many FOIL requests they've received, what's been the average response time, how many have they denied, and on what basis. And that really helps to see how things are, and it helps people to improve. If you got to report these numbers and you're going to look bad compared to other departments or agencies, at a minimum, we should be able to do that. And there is a bill in the state legislature to require doing these types of reports. So hopefully we can get that passed. But just a simple thing of just tracking, what is the average response time, and are we making it better or worse?
Is it your experience that agencies are trying to find ways not to provide the records, but in sometimes cases where it seems like they're trying to just search for a loophole or an exemption that they can classify under in order to deny them?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we start with the premise of, okay, let's get this to the person that's asking for it. We seem to start with the premise of what excuse can we come up with to not give it to them, which is really not how this is supposed to work. The public has a right to government records and documents, and the Erie County Sheriff Garcia, they create new excuses. They're, one of the reasons you can, withhold information is if there is a law enforcement investigation. And he created a new excuse that there may be a law enforcement investigation. Well, that's not what the law says. There either is or there isn't. So we just come up with new creative ways to seem to make it difficult for people.
Yeah, what do you make of the story? I think it was in the Buffalo News this morning about how he was grilled before the legislature's committee as far as the take-home vehicles for Erie County. Does that strike you as something that is being handled in a transparent way?
That's another example. I think the sheriff has lost all credibility with the public, with the legislature. We believe that there's about 183 take-home vehicles in the sheriff's department, but nobody really knows for sure because the sheriff hasn't been very forthcoming with providing that information. I think the legislature and the public has a right to know how many take-home vehicles are they, who has them, for what reasons. And, the Erie County Comptroller said the sheriff was not cooperative in responding to their requests. He's being difficult now with the county legislature. And then, he complains that he's being politically attacked, which I think is far from the truth. All people are looking for here is transparency. And, I was happy at one point, a couple of months ago, he did a press conference where he acknowledged that he needed to do better and was going to do better. And I thought, well, geez, that's kind of a rare admission by a public official in that regard. Maybe there's some hope. And since then, it hasn't gotten better. So I guess, once again, it was just hollow words.
So going back to the FOIL law, there's a weakness that I've encountered in this law that's different from some sort of other states. And I'm curious if you've looked at other states where if a request is denied, yes, you can appeal, but you're appealing to the same agency, and it's rarely going to be they're going to reverse themselves and overturn it. But aside from that, there's really no recourse other than filing in Article 78. Are there other mechanisms in place in other states for citizens, short of filing a lawsuit, where they can push back and try to get these records?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems with New York's law, is that there's really no way for the public to address problems when they're being denied other than going to hire an attorney, which, good luck with that. That'll cost you thousands of dollars and, take a long time. But other states do have ways to help the public. In Connecticut, they have a commission where you can, fill out kind of just a 1 or 2 page form and say my FOIL request, I believe, has been wrongfully denied. And they have a staff of attorneys paid for by the state that will independently hear your complaint, and they have the authority to make decisions to direct the agency to comply. Ohio has a similar program, which is interesting, through the courts, where you can, again, file a complaint, and the court system there, kind of like a small claims proceeding, pretty quickly will address the issue. New York, we don't have any of that. In other states, the attorney general will at least help the public as well. And here in New York, the attorney general argues against releasing documents for state agencies. Other states, they actually have penalties. You can be fined for withholding documents, or even criminally charged. So New York, no fines, no penalties, no one to help you. I mean, what other area of government do you have like nowhere to turn for assistance? It's really pretty amazing.
Yeah, and there. Can you just explain why I think more than ever documents are so important? Because we've reached a point, unfortunately, with our elected officials, really at all levels, where the public is very skeptical of their motives and what they're doing, and very loath to probably accept whatever their PR people are saying about things, because there have been so many cases where politicians have found to have lied or have been dishonest or not credible. But documents, isn't that sort of a unique way for people to look at their government? Because the idea would be at least that, if you're filling out a document internally, that there would be some truth to that.
Yeah, I try to encourage, elected officials. The biggest problem you have as a new elected official or a current elected official is people don't trust you. I mean, the trust in government officials has declined incredibly. And one of the best ways you can build trust is through transparency. If you're willing to, provide information, share information, people become less suspicious. I mean, when I send in a FOIL request and they're finding every excuse possible, it just makes you wonder, well, what are you hiding? Why are you hiding this? It, leads to just a real lack of trust in government. And we need to, not make this so difficult for people. It shouldn't be hard to request some of the things that people are looking for. And, now we're getting letters right off the bat. Well, we'll get back to you in 6 months. 6 months to get a copy of a policy? I mean, I'm not asking you to, dig through all kinds of emails or documents. It just shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah. And are there, if you had your druthers and you were sitting in the governor's office with your party controlling both houses of the legislature, what would you do? Would you throw the FOIL law out and start over? Would you just try to bulk it up? What do you think, best case scenario needs to be done in New York State?
I think we have a good foundation to build on. I think, again, the law was first enacted, in the 70s. So, I mean, the world has changed significantly. So I think the law certainly needs updating. And there are other places that seem to be doing things better or differently. So we know that there are other ways to do this. This isn't the only way. So I wish, the governor and the legislature were more open to trying to make some changes here. We until the New York Coalition for Open Government, until 2021, there was no requirement to post meeting minutes online. I mean, how crazy is that in this electronic age? There was no requirement to post meeting documents online at least 24 hours prior to a meeting. And, 24 hours is still woefully inadequate. In other states, it's 48 hours or 72 hours. So there's just a lot of ways. I would certainly make those changes. The biggest thing, I think we should give the Committee on Open Government enforcement powers. The folks there are knowledgeable about the law, but they just have, other than issuing advisory opinions, they have no power. They should be given power. I think for a couple $1 million, you could easily staff that agency with enough people to hear these appeals. It's kind of crazy again in New York. The town clerk denies your FOIL request, so you appeal to the town attorney. Well, good luck with how that's going to go. It would be one way to lessen the burden on governments is eliminate the appeal process for them, and you appeal to the Committee on Open Government. I think that's
right.
We always, Albany's always putting mandates on local governments. This is one way we can remove a task that they would probably rather not be doing and they don't do well. And again, I don't think for a whole lot of money, we could have a much better system that benefits everyone.
Yeah. What are you guys working on for the rest of this year? You got anything you want to draw any people's attention to?
Kind of two items more along the open meetings law is a lot of people are shocked to learn that in New York State, you do not have a right to speak at your city council meeting or town board meeting. People are shocked to learn that. In like 13 other states, they have to put time on their meeting agenda to hear from the public. That's not required in New York. Most places do it, but not all. And you get a whole 3 minutes to make your point. But they don't have to allow public comments. So it's, again, this kind of thing, it's, we're doing this in our good graces. It should be mandated by law. And interestingly, the Erie County Legislature for 57 years, they've been around, did not allow the public to speak at their meetings. You could speak at public hearings, but not at their regular meetings until we push for them to do that. Buffalo Common Council, you have no right to speak at their regular full council meetings. They will allow it at committee meetings, but not regular meetings. So you never really get to address the full council. So we think the law should mandate public comments. And the other thing is live streaming of meetings. One of the good things that came out of COVID was governments live streaming their meetings. And what was really interesting is how many people watched those meetings. Thousands and thousands of people. So it really showed that people are interested in government. It's very hard for people to take the time to, drive to a place, park, leave their home and attend a government meeting with, children and jobs and whatever. But they are interested. And if you make it easy for them, they will watch. And there's no reason in today's day and age that we can't live stream every meeting. Some places literally do it with an iPhone and a tripod. Live stream the meetings and post the recordings online. I know several states are looking at mandating it. And I don't think there's any reason why we can't do it in New York. Now, I'm sure there's maybe some rural areas that may be problematic, but overall, I think that should be able to be pretty easily done.